So tonight our first speaker will be Nicole. Let's help welcome Nicole up.
Hello. My name is Nicole Choa, and I'm an alcoholic. Nicole. My sobriety date is July 9th, 2020. I'm only speaking first because she has 2 days more, or 3. I'd like to thank Mike for asking me to speak, and share the short version of my story that's pretty long. When I was preparing for this and I was brainstorming, I was kind of searching the internet how to speak from the podium in a respectful AA way, and I ran across an interesting fact on Google. It says that the public speaking is the #1 fear of people in America. Death is number 5, and loneliness is number 7. So that tells me that I would rather die a lonely death than to speak in front of you guys. I am very nervous, and I will try to manage this. My husband says, don't read from the podium. Don't read cards. But I'm from Texas. I can talk to anybody about anything for as long as you want to talk. But when it comes to talk about myself and the honesty and having the, I don't want to breathe in it. I'm an only child of an alcoholic father and a codependent mother. And when I was a small child, I always had that feeling of inadequacy. Severe, crippling, painful, like right now. I never fit in. And I had my first experience with alcohol when I was 14, and I absolutely loved it. By the time I was 16, I was drinking on a daily basis, and I had found my solution. I was tall enough, thin enough, pretty enough, smart enough, funny, and I fit in. So that continued for the next 30 years. And I was first introduced to the AA program via the judicial system. They seemed to think I had a problem with alcohol. And by that time, I knew that my life was unmanageable, but I knew that alcohol was not my problem. How could that be my problem when that's my solution? My oldest, dearest friend, the one that made me feel whole. I tried several times to get my life together. I don't think I was really trying to get sober. I was just trying to get the heat off, And I identified with the big book in so many ways. I tried controlled drinking, only drinking it after lunch instead of in the morning when I was waking up. I tried drinking, when I was sad, only when I was sad, or only when I was happy, or whatever crazy thing I had concocted in my head. And I had a real problem. When I tried to stop drinking, or I couldn't, I just could not do it. I was more miserable sober than I was when I was drinking. And that's just a fact for me. Early in 2000, I decided that everyone would be better off without me. That my only problem was living on this earth in the body that God had given me. And my life had crumbled to a new low. It was I'm a 44-year-old woman, and I had absolutely nothing to show for my entire life. And alcohol could no longer fill the hole that was inside of my soul. So I'd reached the point that I no longer wanted to live. I couldn't lie, manipulate. I couldn't pretend enough, or, just ignore the problem any longer. So, I believe all the brief attempts throughout my life at trying to get sober, the people in the rooms and the people that have been placed in my life, my husband especially. When it was time for me to, when I was at the point of desperation, when I had nowhere else to go, I knew that I could come here. And for you guys, I'm so grateful. I believe that all the brief attempts, I was 9 months in a treatment center. I spent plenty of time in and out of jail. Various 12-step programs besides AA, because I figured I had a lot of problems. So, and I only half-heartedly tried anything I ever did in my entire life. I never gave anything my whole, and I certainly never stuck around for it to work. I spent 121 days in a program called The Turning Point, and that is inside the prison walls. And I knew that AA worked. I saw it working in the lives of people all around me. So I surrendered. I put the plug in the jug, as they say in AA. I started coming to meetings. I got a sponsor who has a sponsor. I work steps. I pray at night before I go to bed. I try to do the next right thing. I try to never say no to anyone in AA that asks me to do something. And things started to turn around for me really quickly. My relationship with my husband has improved 110%. I love that man with all my heart. And I know in my heart that he loves me. I'm not a loved person because of all the things I've done in my life, but I know he does. I have a relationship with our 3 daughters, and I have a really cool connection to a 4-year-old granddaughter who calls me Pecos. And I have a home, and it's full of all the things that I love. And I have a job where I get to help people in the community, and I have coworkers that are all very godly, God-centered people, and I have friends. That's something new. And we have a little money in the bank where bills are paid, and I have all the things that I need. So, sounds really good, right? Well, here's the truth of the matter. Things were not great. Even after all the things that God had given me, and working the steps and doing all these things, I was miserable still, and I just could not figure out why. I just didn't have any clue. I called my sponsor, and I'm like, what is wrong with me? Why am I so ungrateful? Why am I a spoiled brat? I have all of these things that have happened to me, been given to me so freely, and I am not happy. I have no joy, I just had no joy and no peace in my life. And I've been suiting up, showing up, you guys, like really doing this thing. Praying in the morning, praying at night, working with other people, talking about AA all day, all night. I live with my husband who's also in recovery. And so I just couldn't figure out why I wasn't happy, So after a major breakdown at a meeting in Prescott Valley, where I'm sure they still think I'm, they saw the real me, the crazy, neurotic lady. I called my sponsor and asked her just, what the hell's wrong with me? And she said, well, hang on a second, sorry about that. So I called my sponsor and I asked her, what's wrong with me? Why am I such a brat? And why am I so ungrateful? And why do I have no joy, no peace? And she said, have you been doing exactly what I suggested? And I was like, kinda. And she said, have you been praying every morning? Asking God to keep you safe and not to let you drink that day? Have you been using your serenity prayer during the day as needed? And have you been thanking God at night and asking him to allow you to be of maximum service to people? And my honest answer was no, ma'am. I was just doing enough to keep me on the edge, you know. Then she said to me, "What did you think was going to happen? You suffer from untreated alcoholism. You are welcome to be as miserable as you want for as long as you want." So I was like, okay, I'll start listening. Faithful servant I am. I've learned recently about myself that physical sobriety is not enough for me. You know, the first surrender of putting down the bottle and stepping away from my other outside issues, I thought that was enough, and it's not. There's a ton more going on inside that needs some help and some consideration. And I lack emotional sobriety. I was sober, but I had no peace, no joy. And it was suggested to me to read The Next Frontier in Emotional Sobriety that was written by Bill W. This man wrote this after he was sober like 20 years. And it helped me to make me feel like I'm not alone. And I'm going to read you a little bit here. In 1958, an article from the Grapevine, the International Journal of Alcoholics Anonymous, Bill W. wrote about ongoing challenges of recovery that he faced long after he had stopped drinking, including the struggle with depression. I don't know about you guys, but anxiety, depression, all the things that are the real symptoms of my problems, alcohol just covers it up. And when I'm sober, I don't know how to deal with it. I don't know how to deal with anything without alcohol. That's why I was so miserable. I'm learning that emotional sobriety. I'm learning what emotional sobriety really is. I've realized that happiness is a byproduct of giving without demand for return. I'm learning to embrace the present with a gratitude, so I can claim real moments of peace. A wise man once said, "Forgive everyone for everything all the time." Well, I'm a work in progress. But today I know that that's possible. You know, I didn't realize, you know, I come in these rooms and I see these people that have been sober for years and years, that it seems like it's such an unreachable goal. You know, for a long time, I can remember back in Texas at a meeting, and I'm thinking, what kind of crap are these people talking? Stick around. It really starts to make sense, and it starts to come together, and things start to change. And it doesn't just change in the physical, it changes in your heart. And it changes in everything that you touch and everything that you live. So, when I found the willingness to find the solution and not live in the problem, and let go of fear and selfishness and resentment and put my selfish demands aside, things got better. And they are continuously getting better. And today I am happy. I've learned that I was born with a soul sickness, and that I have a hole inside of my heart in the shape of only my higher power. And he is the only thing that can fill that hole inside of my soul. And I thank you for letting me be of service.
Thank you, Nicole. And I would like to welcome our second speaker, be Shanna. Shanna, I'm sorry.
Oh my God, my name is Shanna. I'm an alcoholic. Hi, you guys. I am so nervous. This is my first time speaking. And my advice was to focus on the newcomer. So I just want to say welcome to the newcomer. I am one of you. I only have 262 days sober. Thank you. And I've never spoke before. So I'm going to do my best up here. I am extremely nervous though. So I'll start by telling you a little bit about where I came from. I was raised by a single mom, and she was a youth pastor. I went to church 5 days a week, and when I wasn't in church, I was with somebody from my church. I was never exposed to alcohol, drugs. I was never around any kind of substance or domestic violence situations. But there was a situation. I had a brother. It was me and my mom and my brother, and he had an anger, and he took his anger out on me since I believe I was 6. I always seemed to be in his way. I always seemed to be the cause of his outburst, and he abused me physically, mentally, and emotionally. And growing up with that kind of pain, when I was old enough to get out on my own, I turned 18, and I wanted to just numb everything. I wanted to stop feeling that pain. I wanted to not feel the hurt that I experienced as a child. I felt robbed in my childhood. I felt like I didn't really ever feel loved, by my brother, and that was something hard for me to accept. So I started out as I was 18 with my newfound freedom. I started by getting a fake ID, started going to bars. I started drinking at my job. I started drinking before my job. I drank after my job. I pretty much drank all the time. I experimented with cocaine just to help me kind of sober up when I was at my job. And from cocaine, I went to meth. And I remember the feeling that I felt the first time I tried meth, and it was unreal. I didn't feel anything. I was so happy. I was on this amazing cloud. It felt so good. I felt like I could do anything I wanted to do, and I liked it. I stayed using meth for 11 years, every day. I managed somehow to keep my kids and my apartment, but I didn't have trust of anybody. I did horrible things in my addiction. I sold my grandmother's rings to get high, and I did crazy things, things that I thought were unforgivable. I grew up in New Mexico in a small town, and in 2014, my kids and I were part of a home invasion. It was very traumatic, and I used that as an opportunity to get out of New Mexico. I moved here to Arizona in 2014, and I think that that's when my addiction really got a hold of me. I remember waking up in the mornings and having this intense anxiety, this nervousness as soon as I opened my eyes that I just couldn't get rid of. And so I started drinking beer, and it started out with the little mini cans, and then those turned into 24 ounces into 30 packs, and so on and so forth. But I still thought that my life was okay. I didn't see any problem. I even got on the PTA at my kids' school, which is insane. I know, right? I volunteered for various sporting events, but the one thing that I do remember is that I could never be present. My children I have twins, they're 12 years old now. And like I said, I've been in my addiction for 13 years. The only time I ever stopped was when I was pregnant. So being a parent and being on meth and alcohol makes you absolutely 100% numb. I didn't feel anything. And if I can't feel anything, I can't be there for my children emotionally. And that's caused problems in my life, and it caused problems for my children. So in 2016, by the way, I managed to make it this far without any kind of legal problems until 2016 when I wrecked a rental car into a parked car. Yeah. Thinking that I had everything under control, I had drugs in my car, I had an open container in my car, and I literally had the mindset that it's going to be okay, I got this, right? So the cops come, and of course there's multiple cars because I left the scene of the accident. And they start asking me questions. They find the drugs, and immediately I'm put under arrest. And that night, I remember being there handcuffed in Peoria and thinking to myself, like, God, I swear if you get me out of this, I will never, ever, ever do this again. I will quit everything I'm doing, never again. Well, we all know those prayers, right? So I got out that night. They said, we'll send you a summons in the mail. And the first thing I thought was, I'm going to have a drink, right? Because I should celebrate because I got out of jail, right? So that's what I did. It took me, I think it was almost a year for them to send me a summons in the mail. And I thought I had literally gotten away with everything. When I got called into court, I was immediately, because I let them take my blood, because I didn't think that was a big deal, but because I was caught with drugs and alcohol, and you give them your blood, and it's kind of like signing like a guilty plea. So there was no questions. I was prosecuted for dangerous drugs, paraphernalia, and drinking and driving. I also had collateral damage for wrecking into that car, had to pay for the rental car. And I was put on probation in Maricopa County, where my first appointment with my probation officer was, so tell me a little bit about yourself. I was like, well, I have a problem. I like to drink. And she's like, okay. Well, why do you think you like to drink? I'm like, I'm not sure, but I do, and I have a problem, and I'll get sober, and that's it. So she said, okay, I'd like you to go to treatment. So at this point, for 11 years straight, I had been using meth and drinking. I had no clue what life would be like being sober. I had no idea what I would be freaking out in detox because my brain was not wired the same way. I didn't think the same way. I didn't respond to anxiety. I didn't handle situations, especially with my children, the same way. It was insane. So I recall going to detox at Copper Springs in Avondale. And immediately after that, I went into Maverick House. And I lasted 28 days. And then there was something wrong with that place. I mean, honestly, like there's something wrong with this place. I can't be here anymore. Right. So I find a reason to leave there. And upon leaving there, I made it 2 weeks after waiting in line in Phoenix on Thomas Road to get into Crossroads. I don't know if anybody's ever been there, but it's a hard place to get into. And I just thought if I could just make it, if I could just make it till they accept me and they have a bed for me, then I'll be okay. I made it until the weekend that they told me they had a bed and I relapsed. So I went into Crossroads after having relapsed, but I had only used for like a few hours, so I thought I would be okay. But after you relapse, that phenomenon of craving, that obsession comes back. And so I'm sitting there in Crossroads and thinking to myself, like, all I wanted to do was get out of there to use. So I had a doctor's appointment. I left Crossroads, and I got high. And I went back and I did the good thing that everybody should do, is tell the treatment center that you just got high and you're sorry. Yeah. They kicked me out. And they called my probation officer. So upon being kicked out of that treatment center, my probation officer contacted me and said, I want you to be in my office tomorrow morning. So I went in there thinking, like, I'm literally typing on my laptop this apology letter and just explaining why I couldn't stay sober in there. There's just 60 girls and it's just really stressful and it's just too much. Like, I just couldn't do it. And while I'm writing this, my probation officer said to be there at 8:15, and I was there. She didn't come out until 1:30. And she came out, and as I came around the corner, there was police officers there. I was taken into custody and thrown into jail for violating probation. Something I definitely wasn't expecting. I sat in jail for 2 days, and you would think that that would be like, that's that moment, right? That's the point, right? I'm going to turn my life around, right? I don't want to be in jail. I don't want to eat peanut butter, and this is disgusting in here, right? But I got out, and I promised them I'm going to go to treatment. So I tried another treatment center, all the while using. I did this 10 times. I've been to 10 treatment centers. I can't even count how many times I've been in detox. I have seizures when I detox, so I could never really do it like the easy way. So that gave me more of a reason of like, well, I just can't detox. There's not a bed. So I'm just going to keep drinking until I can get in. So this went on for so long until I went to the Phoenix Rescue Mission with my children and I. I stayed there for almost 2 months, and I was discharged from there because I wasn't willing to surrender. I wasn't willing to follow their advice. I wasn't willing to submit to authority. I thought I could do things my way. I thought I could stay sober my way. And so they asked me to leave. They said, you can find somewhere else. So leaving there, again, my probation officer was upset, but I promised I would find a place to go. I got into sober living in Scottsdale. I was offered a scholarship into a really nice sober living where I stayed there for 9 months. But I didn't do AA. I did Celebrate Recovery because, like I told you guys, I was raised in church, and I thought that just doing Celebrate Recovery and going to church like all the time, maybe 7 days a week, that was going to keep me sober. And for some people, I won't discriminate. Like, that may work for some people, but it didn't work for me. After being in sober living for almost 9 months, I had been working a job. I had gotten an interlock in my car, and I was doing extremely well. And then I started getting these cravings, like thinking that I should use because I was getting really tired at work. I thought this was going to cure all my problems. I wanted to drink. I just had these anxieties again, and I just thought this is going to solve my problems. And I had been talking to an ex-boyfriend of mine about how good I was doing. And then I messaged him one day, and I just asked him, like, can I meet you to get something from you? And he's like, I thought you were doing good. And I'm like, yeah, that's why I just wanted 20, and then I'll be done. Yeah. So I was anxious to go and get there. But I'll tell you one thing is that, when we're thinking about using, like, none of those things go through our head. None of those things that, like, we're doing well. None of those things of, like, the wreckage that you cause to the family and the friends and the boyfriends and girlfriends. None of it goes through your head about your children, like the promises that you've made to them to stay sober. All that's in your head is like, I just have to do this. Like, I just need to stop feeling or stop whatever it is that you're trying to stop. My mind's racing. My mind's going too slow. It is what it is. Like, whatever it is that you're trying to fix, like, you think that substance can cure that. And that's what I thought. So none of those, really conscious decisions about, like, making a good choice went through my head. All I thought about was, like, I just have to have that one hit and I'll be okay. So I went there, I took a hit, and the feeling that I got was unbelievable. And then it set in. You just relapsed. Shit. Sorry. I had to go back home to sober living, and I did all the things that everybody does. How am I going to fake my UA? How am I going to this and that and whatever. I ended up moving out of sober living after relapsing and going home. And the insanity that followed that was something that I had to experience to get me to where I am right now. The insanity of going home and seeing the disappointment in my children's eyes was unbearable. The question in my mom's face when she's like, what are you doing here? And are you okay? Was just so haunting. And then living there with my parents and my kids and lying all the time about where I'm going. I tried to stay in AA meetings in active addiction. I would go to meetings and I'd have these great things to say. And of course I wasn't nervous like I am now because of course I was like 3 sheets under the wind and it just really didn't matter. But I would go to these meetings and I remember just thinking to myself, like, if I could just meet that one person that just makes me think differently, if I could just get that really good person who has a good speech, that person will save me. And the truth about it is I didn't need to be saved. I needed to surrender, and I really had a problem with that. Being raised with religion and being in church, I knew that there was somebody out there who wanted me to do good. And I knew that there was somebody out there who could take the insanity of my life and my addiction away. But in order to surrender would mean that I'd have to say that I couldn't do it on my own. And that wasn't something I was willing to do at that time. So I stayed out in my addiction. I went back to jail again. I ended up with another probation officer. I ended up in another treatment center and another detox and another broken promise and another it won't happen again to my mom. And I remember my mom sitting there telling me one day, just stop making promises to your kids. Like, stop telling them that it's going to be different. Just live what you say. Stop making those promises to me and to them because you're breaking our hearts. And I wish I could say that at that moment, like that was that real moment where I realized, like, okay, I'm going to get sober. I'm hurting everybody around me. My kids are like seriously suffering because I'm not there. But it wasn't that moment. I still had to stay out. I had to go down lower. I had to get down deeper. I had to dig my hole even further. But I always knew that there was something else better out there. But I had never tried the steps. So I came out here June 8th of 2020. I was scholarshiped at a program, an amazing program, a program that really changed my life, a program that taught me that I could strip away all the distractions and all I had left is myself. And if you guys know what it's like to look in the mirror after you've been in active addiction for so long, it's really hard. But they also taught me that there was a solution, that there was a way to get out of that, but that it was going to take hard work. The treatment center that I attended, they didn't really give us anything handed out. We walked a lot, we did CrossFit, we went to meetings, we did service work. But they taught me that I could really be a human being and I could be a functional member of society. They taught me to be respectful in AA meetings. They taught me to come early. They taught me to be quiet and not to drink all the coffee. They taught me a lot of things. They taught me that I could live on practically nothing and survive, and I didn't need fake things like eyelashes, which I'm obsessed with, or lots of makeup, or, all those things that make me feel like I'm like the shit, right? I didn't need those things. But you know what? Like, even with all those things, I couldn't look at myself in the mirror. I couldn't see myself as a good mom. And so, unfortunately, I got discharged from that treatment center for breaking a rule. And it wasn't using. It was doing something that I knew I shouldn't have done. Seeking attention. Trying to grasp for anything. If it's not substance, I have to have something to complete me. Okay, I'm like sitting here all by myself. I don't want to be by myself. I just want to have something. And when I got discharged, I'm out here in Prescott. I have nothing. I have a home in Scottsdale. I have a car. I have family, my kids. Everything's in Scottsdale. But I knew if I went back to Scottsdale, I would not stay sober. And so I did what it took to stay here. I had no plans, but I called up one person. They gave me the money. I went to Oxford House. I was there for a few weeks. Yes, sir. Sorry, I'm going to wrap it up. So I thought it wasn't going to go that long, so I'm so happy. So, anyways, I am now 262 days sober. I have worked on my steps. Thank you. One last thing. I have a new apartment, a new car, a job that I love, and my first sponsee, and I'm so grateful that I have this program of AA. Thank you.
All right, I'd like to welcome our third speaker, Randy. A round of applause.
My name is Randy. I'm an alcoholic addict. That was a good job, Shanna. Nicole, good job. My sobriety date is on 4/20/2020. Yes. That was a very rough day for me, actually. So I'll get to that point of the story. So my dad, he passed away when I was 6. And, it was pretty much just me and my mom my whole life. And so me and her are a lot alike. So, we fought a lot, even from like a young age. I just didn't like being around her or doing things like that, but she loved me, She did everything she could for me. and it was just me and her. She'd never met anybody else. She pretty much just dedicated her life to me. So even though me and her did fight a lot, so it was just me and her, so it felt like I was by myself. Felt very lonely all the time. I went to a Catholic school my whole life, from preschool to 12th grade. The first time I tried to drink, I drank margarita mix, and there's no, I was only 13 years old, so there was nothing in it. Yeah, and I thought I was drunk, but I wasn't. Yeah, honestly. And then I smoked marijuana, and that was the first thing that really I felt like okay to be by myself, and I was like, I didn't really care about anybody else. Like, nobody else really mattered. I had friends and everything, but it was just fun to be by myself, and that's what I continued doing, which was just smoking until 4/20, 2020. And I once I graduated high school, I pretty much told myself that I was gonna get high every day for daily. So when I woke up to when I went to sleep, I was consistently stoned every day. And so the first time I got drunk, it was my friend's birthday, and I drank to the point to where I was throwing up everywhere, so he couldn't even celebrate his own birthday. He was taking care of me. And I didn't really think much about it. I didn't really care. It was pretty selfish of me. But then once I graduated high school, I started taking ecstasy. And then once I started rolling on the weekends, I love to dance. So, that was just the most funnest thing for me. And I usually did ecstasy and cocaine every weekend for 12 years, and and I drank every weekend as well. And it was like the drinks I was buying, they felt watered down. Like, every drink just is just not enough. It would be 1:48, and I would run to the bar to get a drink, and it was just never enough. And I would drink and drive, and thank God I never got arrested or I got in trouble for anything. There were times where I did get arrested. So there was one weekend, it was Halloween weekend, and me and my friend went to Mill Avenue, and I took shots. I blacked out pretty much, and he got in a fight, and I went to go back him up, and on my way to back him up, I completely blacked out. And then the next thing I knew, I woke up arrested in handcuffs, and my friend ran away, and he got away. Yeah, so, and I got maced as well. So I was, it was a bad night. So I was covered in mace in jail, trying to get all that out, and mind you, everyone's dressed up in costumes, so it was completely just a weird situation. And so I saw the judge, and I didn't want to call anybody because I didn't want to get in trouble with my mom. So I walked to my grandma's house, which is only about a mile away, and I rode a bike, and started to sweat, and the mace started to get back into me, and it hurt so bad. And luckily I was at my by my work, so I crawled into work, and my boss was cool, so he let somebody take me home. Went home and just poured milk all over me, because that's what you do when you get maced. So but yeah, yeah, it was rough. Now, drugs are a really big part of my story. I do identify as an alcoholic because I feel that alcohol or, substances are just a solution to our problem. I have an addiction or addictive personality. I just like to consume. So, once I find something that I really like, I just want to keep doing it. And that was really my main issue with marijuana. I every day just smoked until I went to sleep, and I didn't think anything of it. When I was 20, I started selling marijuana, and I was able to move out of my mom's house, take care of myself, and pretty much support myself till I was about 28, based off of bad character. Because that's, really was the root of my problem, was my character flaws of being able, I thought I was a good person because I was able to support myself and do all these things, but it was based off of doing something illegal. And so there were times where I almost got in trouble for marijuana, and I bought a medical card. And the medical card, really got me out of a lot of trouble. Really did, thank God. Even though I did get arrested, it was my first time being arrested, and they gave me a slap on the hand. That was a first offender charge, and it was a public intoxication, so they just let me go by doing a couple, 8 hours of classes. So yeah, I did take ecstasy, and that started to make my body swell up, and it really there was bodily organs that just stopped working, and that did cause a lot of depression for me. So those of you who suffer from depression, I used to think that depression was something that you can just deal with. It's something that's you're sad, boo-hoo, but that's really not the case. It made me want to sleep constantly. All I wanted to do was be asleep and just forget about what was happening to me. And that was probably one of the worst times of my life, was having to deal with that. I'll tell another story. It was my goddaughter's birthday. She was 6 years old, or she's turning 6. We flew out to Las Vegas, and we got a hotel and everything. My friend, it was her daughter. She thought it would be a good idea if we all took acid and walk the strip. And I took way too much acid that night. It really, as soon as it hit me, it was too much. I just felt everything my mind was gone. So I thought it was, we get in the taxi cab. I started yelling at him, and that's when I started blacking out. And I began to think that it was the end of the world. And I started, blacking out, running. I remember that my friend's boyfriend, he was chasing me, and I thought we were just running together, we were all just running. I really thought it was the end of the world, we were all just running. And yeah, yeah, that was bad. So I ended up going back to the hotel, and they called an ambulance, and I they detained me and put me in the back of an ambulance, and I was like, all right, that's it. This is how Randy dies. Like, I was like, that's it. You know, I'm dead. I'm dead. I'm walking around in my own purgatory. That was it. And so I wake up. They like shot me up with Valium. I fall asleep, and then I wake up in the hospital, and everything is just moving, you know. And it was my goddaughter's birthday that morning, so we went back to the hotel, and this is where I felt like fuck, I'm a shitty person, cause it you know, I was like kind of still hallucinating, and they had Beauty and the Beast characters come, and like it was weird, and you know, I felt really bad because like it was a celebration for her, and I was, you know, I was tripping, and yeah, it was bad. Okay, so you know, fast forward to 4/20/2020. That morning I started taking fentanyl, and I ingested too much, and I overdosed, and my mom found me. It was about 4:50, like it was about 5 o'clock in the morning. My mom found me, and I went to, you know, luckily she called the paramedics, and they woke me up, and I was, you know, throwing up everywhere, and one of the owners of the recovery program that I'm in, he came and was just like, Randy, your whole family wants you gone. Like they're done with you. Like they're tired of you, of your shenanigans, whatever you're doing. They're tired of it. And yeah, I just remember, you know, wanting to take one last hit of weed, and I get in the car with them, and it was 4:20, so I tried to stop at the dispensary with him. And he was like, no, we're not doing that. I was like, all right, cool. And so I was coming down off of Narcan, and he tried to talk to me the whole way. I was like, I can't do this. So I fell asleep, and we got here, and they, you know, I acted like I was happy. It was cool. You know, me and Shanna went to the same recovery program, and they don't play games there. Like, it was rough, and they made me take out my gauges, and I was not having it. I was at an inch, and you know, it was part of my identity, and I did not want to give it up. So I got kicked out, and I just remember sitting on the side of the road, like, how did this happen? Like, how am I on the side of the road? Like what is happening right now? And I was just like, this is not going to be me. So you know, I walked back, and I was like, fine, I'll stay or whatever. And I played along. You know, I was like, my family was done with me. I'm on the side of the road, so I had nowhere to go. And you know, I played along for a couple months, and I felt after a while it started getting, you know, like it really started to grab hold. Like I started to, you know, love the people I was around. My first sponsor, he was really good. I found him on accident through this book I was reading, and his number was in it, so I called him. And then, yeah, and then I walked through the steps with him, and, you know, it really dealing with the old timers too, like I feel like I was just hearing their story every day and I was getting tired of it. And, once you just work through it and they say one day at a time, it's a true story because, I just remember it was like it sucked for me. Like it really did. But then I was able to, forget about everybody in the past. I was done thinking about them, and I wanted to have a future for myself because, it was 30 years old, so I need to have a future. So I think it's time for me to shut up. So thank you, everybody.
All right, let's give another big round of applause for our speakers tonight.